The story is set in the eerie, shadowy city of Greywater, a once vibrant cultural center now decaying from corruption, crime, and neglect. Despite the city's moral decay, it's home to a thriving art scene, filled with galleries, museums, and artists who remain untouched by the darker undercurrents. This contrast makes Greywater the perfect hiding place for someone who turns death into a form of art. The killer, known in secret as the Painter, is a renowned and respected figure in Greywater's art world. His public identity is Elliot van der Rohe, a famous painter whose abstract and modern works sell for millions. Underneath this refined exterior lies a man with a twisted sense of justice and a psychopathic obsession with cleansing society through his killings. Elliot doesn't see himself as a murderer, he sees himself as an artist delivering justice to those who, in his eyes, deserve to die. His victims are not random, they are criminals, corrupt politicians, drug dealers, human traffickers, people he believes are a blight on society. Elliot's warped philosophy is that he's not committing crimes, but purifying the world, one sinner at a time. Elliot meticulously researches his victims for weeks, if not months, before striking. He identifies his targets through media reports, legal files, and secret connections. He chooses those who have evaded justice through corruption or exploitation. To him, they are stains on the canvas of society, and it's his duty to erase them. His choices are calculated and morally skewed, as he considers himself a judge, jury, and executioner. What makes Elliot even more dangerous is that his public persona as a beloved artist allows him to move through high society circles unnoticed. No one suspects that this refined, soft-spoken man could be capable of such horror. Elliot doesn't just kill his victims, he stages their deaths as grotesque and beautiful masterpieces. Each murder is unique, carefully executed with no evidence left behind. He lures his victims to secluded locations, often under the guise of art commissions or private exhibitions, and kills them using a variety of methods, ranging from poisoning to suffocation, always choosing a method that allows him to control the scene. The way he stages the bodies is his true signature. Elliot turns his victims into part of his final piece. He drains their blood completely, leaving the bodies pale and still. Then, he meticulously paints their skin with a mixture of blood and oil paint, creating abstract patterns that symbolize their sins in his twisted worldview. Each corpse is posed in a way that mimics famous paintings, carefully reenacting scenes from the Renaissance, Baroque, or modern art movements. For example, one victim, a corrupt politician, is found posed like the figure in The Death of Marat by Jacques-Louis David, lying in a bathtub, blood painted on his skin like a cloak. Another victim, a drug dealer, is posed as the central figure in Caravaggio's Judith beheading Holofernes, with the added horror of his own severed hand painted and placed in his lap. Elliot's artistic precision ensures there's never any physical evidence left behind. He's meticulous in cleaning up fingerprints, fibers, and DNA. Each crime scene is perfect, sterile, and unsettling, no weapon, no trace, nothing but the gruesome display of a lifeless body. Detective Simon Kane is a brilliant investigator, exiled to Greywater after defying his superiors during a high-profile case in the capital. Once a celebrated detective, Kane had uncovered systemic corruption within the police force and refused to stay silent. As a result, he was punished by being reassigned to Greywater, a city where crime thrives and justice feels out of reach. Kane is sharp, methodical, and deeply driven by his need for justice. He's been in Greywater for a few years, solving lower-profile crimes, but when bodies start turning up in the form of macabre artwork, Kane immediately senses something much more sinister. The local authorities dismiss the murders as gang violence or random attacks, but Kane knows better. His instincts tell him there's a brilliant mind behind these killings, one that is far more dangerous than anyone realizes. As the bodies pile up, Kane finds himself in a race against time to catch the painter before more people die. However, every time he uncovers a clue, it seems to have been left there deliberately, almost as if the killer wants him to play along. Elliot views Kane as a worthy opponent, someone who can appreciate the art of his murders. Kane, though sharp, struggles against the layers of misdirection Elliot has crafted. Each time Kane gets close, Elliot is already a step ahead. Their battle of wits intensifies, and Kane becomes increasingly obsessed with finding the killer. He studies Elliot's public art, analyzing it for hidden meanings or potential clues. He becomes convinced that Elliot's paintings themselves hold the key to understanding the killer's next move. Yet, no matter how hard Kane pushes, Elliot remains just beyond his grasp. Elliot van der Rohe wasn't always a monster. He was once a child prodigy, displaying immense artistic talent from a young age. However, he grew up in a cold, abusive household where his father, a former military officer, expected perfection. Elliot's only escape was his art, but even that was never enough for his father, who demanded absolute control over every aspect of his son's life. As Elliot grew older, his father's oppressive control and emotional abuse pushed him to the edge. He developed an obsession with perfection, not just in his art but in life itself. His first kill was his father, though it was never discovered. Elliot staged it to look like a natural death, marking the start of his transformation into the painter. His twisted sense of justice and perfection grew as he aged, fueled by his experiences in the corrupt art world and his own disillusionment with humanity. He began to believe that the world was filled with imperfections, people who had to be removed in order for society to achieve balance. And so, Elliot's killing spree became his life's work, his ultimate masterpiece. As Kane closes in on Elliot, he begins to see the killer's twisted logic. But the more he understands, the more he realizes how dangerous and unpredictable Elliot is. Elliot reveals pieces of his past through cryptic clues, leading Kane to an abandoned art gallery, a place Elliot once showcased his work before he fell into madness. The final confrontation takes place here, among Elliot's failed masterpieces and forgotten canvases. Kane, battered and exhausted, confronts Elliot, but in a shocking twist, Elliot turns the tables once again. In their final exchange, Kane is forced to question whether he's truly the hero in this story or just another player in Elliot's grand design. The story ends on an ambiguous note. Elliot escapes, disappearing into the shadows, leaving behind only the haunting message that the art is not yet complete. Kane is left standing in the empty gallery, realizing that even if he had caught Elliot, the killer's influence would live on, his work unfinished. In the end, Elliot remains at large, a ghost in the world of Greywater, continuing his work. The story closes with a new body found, staged as another grotesque piece of art, reminding Kane that as long as Elliot is free, the killing will never stop. It's not about who wins or loses, but about the chilling realization that perfection is a pursuit that never ends.